And here now is Timothy Boyle from his home in North Dakota. Hey, Timothy.
Hey, Kevin. I'm Tim. It is fantastic to meet you. Great show.
Thank you, Tim. So, take us back. When did you get your start running?
It's funny because I never thought that I would ever become a runner. As a matter of fact, if 9 years ago you would have told me that I would have been a runner, I would have laughed at you and probably pushed you over in a snowbank or whatever. I was a 2.5 pack a day smoker, and I had given that up. And instead of putting a cigarette in my mouth, I was putting food in my mouth. I took one bad habit and exchanged it for another. And so that's how I ended up becoming a runner, is I needed to take some of that weight off because it was becoming unhealthy.
I heard you were going through a lot at the time.
So I was going through a pretty tough time. I was going through a divorce. I was in the whole woe is me, poor, pitiful me, just feeling sorry for myself. And I had a friend of mine whose aunt was one of the board members of an organization that deals with people with Down syndrome. And so I kind of got addicted to that page, and I was going through there, and that's how I found Michael.
Right, and that's Michael Wasserman. Tell us about him.
Michael is a 58-year-old man. He's got Down syndrome, and he's confined to a wheelchair because of bilateral hip dysplasia. He is one of those guys that he's electric. You're just drawn to him automatically. And the fact that he was doing these paintings and auctioning them off for charity just led me to, I was drawn to him instantly. And so that's what I did, was I bid on his paintings, and that's how he and I became friends.
And besides being drawn to his paintings, you and Michael shared another common interest.
Years ago, he would compete in the Special Olympics, and his specialty was the 50-yard dash. So he was a runner back in his day until the hip dysplasia had caused him to not be able to run anymore. He did do, at that time, it was a very, very experimental surgery. And if I remember correctly, he was able to run again for a little while. And eventually the surgery had deteriorated to the point where he ended up back in the wheelchair. And so that's Michael. He is a bright bulb in this world. He is a light.
Sounds like you two have a powerful bond. When did this carry into your running?
I started Googling inspirational quotes, and I found one that said, "I run because I can, and when I get tired, I remember those who can't run and what they would give for this simple gift that I take for granted." And I thought, man, this is profound. I was like, I'm going to post this on Facebook because I know other people are going to be like, whoa, that is so cool. And so I did. I posted that on Facebook, and he saw the post, and he said, "You can run for me anytime."
You weren't done yet, though. How did this lead to your organization?
I was doing a 5K in the middle of winter here in North Dakota, which is 6 below zero. And my best friend at the time, she had told me that I was running this race that was going to be really, really cold. And so I started training, and that's when I started running for Michael. And I told her about it. I was like, Carrie, I'm running this race for Michael. And she goes, "We're going on the radio," because she was the program director of the local Christian station. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We can do that. And we went on, and it was right before we were going on air. I asked her, I said, "Do you think other people are going to want to do it?" I guarantee you, people are going to buy into it. People are going to want to do this. So at that moment, that's when I decided to create the Facebook group.
Heck, man, since then, your Facebook page has blown up. And your page is called I Run for Michael, right? And it just keeps going.
We hit 500 members within the first 4 months. Then all of a sudden, within the first year, we're at 17,000 members. And now we're at 40,000 members. We're in 100 countries. We're all over the world. It's people like me. It's people like you. It's your everyday average person that's out there trying their best I'm not breaking any land speed records. A lot of our members are not breaking any land speed records. That's fine. That's exactly who we reach out to. And what we get out of it is we take ourselves out of that running and we put somebody else in it. So if I'm out running a 5K and the last mile is difficult, I think of Michael. I think of Michael sitting there and cheering me on. I can tell you that I have never had a DNF, which is a did not finish. I have never had a DNF running for Michael. I will crawl across a finish line so that I can do that for Michael.
It sounds like Michael had a pretty powerful effect on you. I bet you just had to meet this guy.
I had been running for Michael for almost 2 years before I was finally able to fly out to San Diego to meet him. I've got goosebumps. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got goosebumps right now thinking about it. I can only describe it as a kid on Christmas morning or his birthday morning or whatever. Like, Michael is such a hero to me that it was like, I remember pulling up to their house. I remember getting out of the car. I remember knocking on the door going, oh my gosh, I hope he likes me. I hope his mom and dad like me, because we had never met before. We had chatted a few times. We'd done this and that, but we had never met face to face. And it's like, oh my gosh, what if? And then that door opened and there was Mary, Al, and Michael, and all of my worries were washed away. I was greeted with hugs. And Michael, he's like, Big Tim, Big Tim, Big Tim. And I went over and I leaned over and I gave him a big hug. And he's got this thing where he likes to kiss me on the side of the head. And that's the first thing that he did, was he gave me a big hug and he kissed me. And I cried. I'll admit, I try to be the manly man, but I was blubbering like a little baby for a little bit. But then the rest of our time there was absolutely amazing. It was a lot of fun. It was more than I could have ever dreamed of.
So after all this, your Facebook group has just grown into so much more. This is cool, man. I actually saw you featured in Time magazine.
It's very surreal what has happened. We've got people getting tattoos. What? I mean, seriously. Like, my logo is tattooed on other people. I've got an amazing staff of volunteers. I'm just the guy that came up with the idea and started it, and I did this stuff in the beginning, but my volunteers, they're the ones that are doing all this, and our team has created this beautiful place for people to come and have it brighten their day.
And all that from Michael sending you a Facebook comment.
I was in a bad place. I'd just gone through a divorce. I was feeling sorry for myself, and bang, there's Michael. He shows up at a time where I needed him. I needed his joy. I needed his light. None of this stuff would have happened if it weren't for the miracle of meeting Michael, or him deciding to comment on my post saying, you can run for me anytime. That is a true miracle.
Well, that's true. It's just a miracle, because Michael is exactly what Timothy needed just to kind of get him out of his funk. Look what they created together. All right, Timothy, loved having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Your story is amazing.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of the show.
Hey, Elva, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. It's Elva. I'm really happy to join you today.
And we're so pleased to have you, Elva. Can you tell us a story of the events leading up to that Thanksgiving?
Actually, I was very sick. I wasn't really, myself. I had lost a lot of weight. The medication they gave me to see if it can boost my energy, I had no energy at all. But none of that they tried worked. So I went to see a nephrologist. He said, your kidneys are failing. So that's when they decided, you need dialysis.
At this time, Elva's son David was giving her rides to the dialysis center. This, of course, had a profound effect on David.
And to continue Elva's story is her son, David Hernandez. Hello, David.
Hey, Kevin.
So, David, as the holidays were approaching, What kind of shape was your mother in?
At the time, her kidney was at 10%, I believe. And it's not very much for someone's kidney to be living. I was kind of shocked because, before she ever announced that she had kidney disease, she was perfectly fine. She was working, she was doing normal activities,
Yeah, I totally understand how concerned you were. So, everything was normal up until then. Elva, tell us what dialysis was like.
I went to dialysis 3 times a week. I sat there for 3 hours. The medicine was inserted for 3 hours, changing, cleaning the blood. So that for me was very scary. Fainting and having them giving me more blood so they can balance it out. I was very sick. I passed out multiple times. And at that time, she mentioned, well, you're going to be on dialysis for quite some time.
It hurt because I didn't want her to go through any type of, pain or suffering,
And that's when they started the process of putting me on the list. And they said they're not going to lie. It takes about 5 years. I had to take that in. I told my family I didn't want a kidney from my family members. I repeatedly told them I wanted to remain on the list.
Wow, okay. So you're on dialysis and your kidneys are getting weaker. What happened after that?
Actually, I didn't know anything. They were all tested. Family members, friends, they were all tested. I had no clue.
My youngest brother didn't. I didn't want him to get tested, and no one else wanted him to get tested because he's the youngest. But my 3 oldest, they did, and they were a match, but they also had health complications themselves.
I didn't want them to have 1 kidney, and I didn't want them, if God forbid something would happen to them, they'll have 1 kidney.
So David, now your mom's been put on the waiting list managed by the United Network of Organ Sharing, and of course are going to give priority to the people that have been on the list the longest. So tell us what happened next.
Imagining a world where I lost my mother, it's not a world that I want to live in. So if I am given the chance to give her a longer life, I'll take that chance, no matter what. Why make her wait when I have a healthy kidney that I could give her?
Since this was right around the holidays, what was your reaction when you found out you were a match?
When I found out I was a match, I wanted it to be a surprise for her. I just couldn't see her suffer anymore, and that's what I told myself. So I figured, why not surprise her on a day where she's gonna be surrounded by family and loved ones?
There was a big family gathering on Thanksgiving Day. This was on 2017.
I made her believe that she had a letter from somewhere that she had to sign immediately.
My son gave me a letter, and he said, "Mom, I need you to read this letter for me."
My brother, my oldest brother, he gave her the letter. She opened it, and there was a paper inside. As I'm looking at her open the letter, my heart is immediately pumping so fast because I didn't know how she was going to react. It had a picture of just a random kidney, and it had said, "This is David's kidney, and he's going to give it to you."
So I cried, and I said, "Why are you doing this?" And he answered to me, Mom, because I love you. Mom, because I want you with us. And I want to give you a kidney.
She immediately looked at me and started bawling her eyes out, and the feeling was just...
They were so happy. My children, everybody was ecstatic. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of laughter. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful Thanksgiving I ever had in my whole entire life.